What's up, nerds? It's Shane with Guys That Magic, and today I'm joined by Hunter. Say what up, dude.
What's up?
Today we have something special. We're gonna go over your $300 upgrade for Paradox Power. You had a cool 100, and this is the big boy version of that. So we're gonna take the 100, we're gonna turn it into a 300. I'm very excited. In the description down below, you'll find a link to the $100 video. Hunter goes over all of his ads, all of his cuts, all of his reasoning. If you haven't watched it already, go check it out. But this is gonna be his 300, so it's gonna be bigger, it's gonna be badder, it's gonna be cooler, hopefully. But before we jump into that, just a quick reminder that we do have a Patreon. We finally did it. If you would like to support us a little extra, you do not need to, but the link is in the description. You can find cool things like gameplays, giveaways, Discord access. Enough with that, though. Let's just jump into your 300 Hunter. I'm excited. Let's talk about the commander. Remind the people what the card does. What does your deck want to do? Let's just jump into it.
Sure. So yeah, the $300 upgrade to Paradox Power. We are still sticking with the face commanders of the deck. We used them on the 100. It's still sticking. That's the 13th Doctor in Yasmin Khan. The 13th Doctor is a green, and a blue for a 2/2 legendary creature Time Lord Doctor. Has ability called Paradox, which means whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It also has Team TARDIS, which means at the beginning of your end step, untap each creature you control with a counter on it. So we're doing the counter thing with a caveat of casting things other than our hand to get those counters, and we get to untap all of our stuff that have counters on them. Yasmin Khan's is 3 and a red for a 3/3 legendary creature human detective. It has an ability where you could tap it, exile the top card of your library until your next end step you may play it. It's a Doctor's Companion, so that's why we're allowed to use it in the command zone. Great news! Yasmin Khan allows us to trigger our commander because we are exiling the top card that is not from our hand. So let's go ahead and trigger that. So we're doing the whole +1/+1 counter theme, making it go wide, making it cast things from other places other than our hand. It's fantastic.
Love it, dude. I'm excited about all these Doctor Who decks. I cannot wait to play them together. On the screen, before we jump into your new additions, we're going to just flash all the additions from your $100 list. Since this is a continuation, all these cards you liked in your 100, you're going to bring them over. They're fantastic. But let's jump into your new additions after the 300. You got a bigger budget? What are we adding?
Yeah, so starting off on the screen, we're going to add some more creatures to this list. We're a +1/+1 counter theme, so those +1/+1 counters need to go somewhere. So we're putting them on creatures. This first one is Edgin, Larcenius Lutenist. He is 1, a blue, and a red for a 3/3 legendary creature human bard. It says each non-land card in your hand without foretell has foretell. Its foretell cost is equal to its mana cost reduced by 2. And it says whenever you cast your second spell each turn, go to target creature an opponent controls. So Edgin here from the D&D movie allows us to have all of our spells have foretell. So that is fantastic because that means we can cast them from exile without people knowing what they are. It kind of just trips up people into thinking, okay, what is he actually foretelling? Is it an actual foretell card or is it just a different card? But it triggers our commander. It's a perfect fit into the deck.
Yeah, it is, dude. And it makes it reduced by 2? That's crazy. Basically, you're just
Yeah,
reducing all your spells by 2.
it's true, but you do have to pay that 2 to put it into foretell anyway. So realistically, you're not really doing anything. I mean, you're technically just delaying the spell. But it triggers our commander, so it's perfect. Another card we're adding is from Warhammer. It's Keeper of Secrets. It's 5 and a red for a 6/4 creature demon. It's got first strike and haste. It has Symphony of Pain, which means whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Keeper of Secrets deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. So once again, if we're casting things from anywhere other than our hand, we are dealing damage to a target opponent based on that mana value. So it's going to get nuts because someone's going to get hurt for spells we cast.
This card's awesome. I'll give you a little secret if you keep it. I was looking at this card for my deck as well.
Ooh, yeah, it's a fun one. And the final creature we're going to add into this 300 list, I should have added it to the 100, but I'm throwing it in here for 300. It's Questing Druid. It's the new card from Eldraine. It is an adventure, so it has an adventure part that's called Seek the Beast, which is 1 and a red for an instant. It says exile the top 2 cards of your library until your next end step. You may play those cards. So that just enables us to go ahead and use our commander's ability because we're exiling them from our library, and then we can cast them. It triggers our commander, and then Questing Druid actually says for 1 and a green, it is a 1/1 creature human bard. It says whenever you cast a spell that's white, blue, black, or red, put a +1/+1 counter on Questing Druid. So we do have all those red and blue spells that will trigger this. Unfortunately, it doesn't trigger on green, which is its own color. But it's doing the +1/+1 counter thing, so it fits perfectly.
Love it. Love the addition. Those are some great creatures. What other non-creature spells you got going on?
So I just wanted to throw in one protection spell because we're a +1/+1 counter deck, and when the +1/+1 counter thing gets out of control, people like to wipe our board, which is very sad when it happens. I'm actually going to throw in Heroic Intervention, which is 1 and a green for instant. It says permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible till end of turn. Very simple and to the point. You know what the card does. But this, I'm actually using the exact printing from the Doctor Who Blast from the Past deck. So it sticks on the Doctor Who theme. So we're actually sticking with this awesome artwork. So we're kind of not taking apart Doctor Who stuff.
Hey, the Who fan in me says, I approve.
There you go. Protecting our stuff while also giving it flavor.
Any new artifacts going in the deck?
Yep, I am actually going to throw in 3 new artifacts into this deck. Agatha's Soul Cauldron is one of the brand new cards from Eldraine. It is so powerful that it needed to be in this deck. It is 2 generic mana for a legendary artifact that says you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to activate abilities of creatures you control. It also says creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have all activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with Agatha's Soul Cauldron. And the final ability, you could just tap it, exile a card from a graveyard. When a creature card is exiled this way, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So, because all of our creatures are going to have +1/+1 counters regardless of this card, we're just going to be exiling people's things out of their graveyard. If they have really cool abilities, now all of our creatures are going to have those abilities. It's a perfect fit.
Yeah, it is. This is a menace of a card.
Another artifact we're throwing in here is the Sword of Forge and Frontier. It's 3 generic mana for an artifact equipment. It says equipped creature gets +2/+2. It has protection from red and from green. And whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. You may play an additional land this turn. Equip cost of 2. So, a little bit of ramp, a little bit of the exile effect there, so we can get those casting costs for our commander, not from our hand. Sword of Forge or Frontier is the perfect sword for the deck.
Ramping.
And speaking of a bit of ramp, the Great Henge is going in the deck as well. 7 and 2 green, but you'll never spend that because this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. You can tap it to add 2 green mana, and you gain 2 life. And whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. Counter thing, drawing cards, mana rock, gaining life. The Great Henge is all of the above.
This card is just too damn good.
It really, really is. I think this is my favorite artifact they've ever printed since the original Wilds of Eldraine.
Well, you're a green player, so that makes sense.
I'm a green player that loves the counter thing, so
Yeah, it's crazy. Did we do anything with the lands?
yep, the final additions here, we're just adding in some better lands. So I'm adding all the shock lands. That's Breeding Pool, Steam Vent, Stomping Ground. They enter battlefield tapped unless you pay 2 life. If you do pay 2 life, it does come in untapped. Obviously, they don't tap for their respective colors. Breeding Pool, green, blue, Steam Vents, blue, red, Stomping Ground, red, green. And the final land we're throwing in is the Triome of our colors. That is Ketria Triome. It comes in the battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add a green, blue, or red. It also has all of our respective land types on the card. Forest, Island, Mountain, in case we have one of those cards that say, hey, it comes in tapped if we have one of those, or we have to show off a Forest, Island, Mountain from our hand. Ketria Triome is all of the above. It's also got Cycling 3 in case you wanted to draw a new card and you get this late game.
Solid. I would add all these as well in this deck. Good lands, buddy.
Yeah, it just makes our deck run faster.
Yep, which is always important. Are those all your additions?
those are going to be all of my additions. It's going to be short and sweet this time. I didn't want to change the deck too much. I know we've been saying this over and over, but if you like Doctor Who, pick up these decks, keep them as is. Don't break up the lore. They're pretty incredible as they are, but we're just adding these just to make a little spice in the life of Doctor Who.
Yeah, and like we've also said, and what I've been reading a lot too is, if you're a Who fan, buy 2 of them. Keep one for prosperity, and then upgrade one. That's cool. I might do that too.
For sure.
Well, now we got to the part where you got to make room for all your awesome new additions. So before we get to your new cuts, because you added new cards, up on screen we'll show all the existing cuts. These are the cuts you'd made with the $100 list. You made them for a reason. If you wanted to watch the video in the description, you'll see the link. He'll go over every card, why he cut it. But now we got new cards to add, so that means we have new cards to cut, bud. Walk us through those.
Yeah, so I know I said we're adding creatures because we need to put counters on them, but when we add creatures, you got to take out creatures. So these are the creatures I'm taking out. They probably have a special place in the lore, but they are not doing it for me in the deck. So the first one is Graham O'Brien. It's 1 and a green for a 2/2 legendary creature human pilot. It's got Paradox. It says whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, create a food token. The Doctor's Companion. Just didn't do enough for me. I know it's doing the thing where we're casting stuff from other than our hand just to make food. I don't care about food in this deck whatsoever. So Graham O'Brien getting the axe here. Memory Worm is also one that's getting cut. It is 1 and a red for a 1/1 creature alien worm. It's also got Paradox, which means whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Memory Worm deals 2 damage to target player. That player discards a card, then draws a card. Put a +1/+1 counter on Memory Worm. Yes, it's doing the thing where we're doing damage to people if we're casting things other than our hand. And we're getting the counters on this thing. So it's doing both things, except we're giving the ability to kind of filter through our opponent's deck, giving them a better card if they didn't have it. And I don't like that ability. And the final creature we are taking out of the deck is actually someone that is kind of famous in Doctor Who, I believe. This is River Song. It is 1, a blue, and a red for a 2/2 legendary creature human Time Lord Rogue. Has an ability called Meet in Reverse, which means you draw cards from the bottom of your library rather than the top. It's also got Spoilers, which means whenever an opponent scries, surveils, or searches their library, put a +1/+1 counter on River Song. Then River Song deals damage to that player equal to its power. Yeah, I'm gonna the ability to draw from the bottom of your library. I know Gavin Verhey had mentioned like this was kind of his idea a long time ago, and it finally got put on a card. It's a neat effect. Is it doable forever? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say it's gonna get kind of frustrating to draw from the bottom of your deck all the time. It's not doing the exile thing, so you're not casting spells from the bottom of your deck. Super weird. Also, the card doesn't do anything unless our opponent does something. So it's just kind of just sitting there doing nothing and just kind of honestly being annoying drawing from the bottom.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. Like, drawing from the bottom is very cute, but man, in practice that would drive me crazy.
Yeah.
But all of her abilities are super flavorful, which makes sense. And yeah, she's a huge part in the story. But after I was looking at that, I was like, I probably would do the same thing and cut her, just because, like, yeah, the bottom part can't force your opponents to do any of those things, so you have no control, like you said. And the top part just seems super annoying. So no matter how flavorful and how like she's a big part of the story, I probably cut this as well. Well, those are your creatures you're cutting. What about some non-creature spells?
Yeah, so this first one is just a sorcery that I figured it can leave the deck. It's Impending Flux. 2 in red for a sorcery. Paradox. Impending Flux deals X damage to each opponent and each creature they control, where X is 1 plus the number of spells you've cast from anywhere other than your hand this turn. Also has a foretell of 1 and 2 red. So, a couple different reasons I'm cutting this card. One, the foretell cost is exactly the same, except you have to have an additional red pip, which I thought was really weird because normally when you foretell something, it's cheaper. It's why you're foretelling the card. Um, Same cost. So let's just say that this was foretold, and then you cast one other card using the mana from exile or from wherever. and then you cast this. So in reality, you've cast 2 spells from other than your hand this turn, where X is +1, so you're doing 3 damage to each opponent and each creature. That's not a good rate.
Yeah, that's not that great.
So that's why I'm cutting it. 3 damage is not enough in EDH. I know you can do more. You could be like, oh, I cast this card and I cascaded this card and I'm doing one more. So that's 4 damage. That's still not enough for me. So this card's getting the axe. It's not enough to entirely board wipe. So goodbye, Impending Flux.
Your additions had a couple artifacts. Are you going to cut any artifacts to make room?
I am going to cut some artifacts to make room. I'm getting rid of Cursed Mirror. It's 2 and a red for an artifact. You can tap it to add red. And it says, as Cursed Mirror enters the battlefield, you may have it become a copy of any creature on the battlefield to end of turn, except it has haste. The one-time effect of just making a copy real quick on this is cool, but at the end of the day, it's a 3-mana mana rock, and I don't want that.
I understand.
The other artifact that is getting the axe, which honestly, this was my last cut, and if you like this card, keep the card in. This was the hardest cut of the entire list. It was one of those where I was like, I need one more card to cut, and this is just it. Psychic Paper, 2 generic mana for an artifact equipment. It says, as it becomes attached to a creature, choose a creature card name and a creature type. Equipped creature has Ward 1. It can't be blocked, and its name and creature type are the last name chosen and creature type. Equipped cost 2. You might be thinking, whoa, wait a minute. You are spending 2 mana to make this unblockable? That sounds incredible. And it is. I do like this card a lot. But it's not doing our thing where we want to do counters, and it's not doing the thing where we want to X out cards. This is a fantastic card for any deck that's trying to do it with a bunch of damage really quickly. It's great for an equipment themed deck, but when it comes to doing what we want to do, this was the last card I had to cut. If you love this card, keep it in the deck, but this is the one I'm axing here.
Yeah, I get that. When you're doing upgrades, you got to do cuts, and I understand. Just wasn't fitting in the deck. And you did add some new awesome lands. What are we taking out to make room for them?
Yeah, so we're taking out a bunch of lands, and by a bunch, I mean only 5. I know we added 4. We're just dropping down 1 extra land, so the land total here is going to be just 35. It's going to be fine. We're going to be casting stuff from exile and all that stuff, so we can just wait on lands and stuff. But we do have a lot of different ways to get land in the deck. We're adding the Great Henge, which is available. We added Cryptolith Rite, which is available. We just have a lot of ways to make mana, so we can go down 1 land. So the lands we are cutting, first up, should have cut it in the 100, but I kept it in because it's a nice little card for the 100. But Myriad Landscape, get out of here. It enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap to add a colorless. You can pay 2, tap this, sacrifice it, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards that share a land type, put them on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. It takes 3 mana sources to get 1 extra land because you're eliminating this one. So that is not a good rate. So Myriad Landscape, get out. Sheltered Thicket, also leaving. It's a land mountain forest. You can tap to add a red or green. Always enters the battlefield tapped, and it's got cycling too. We added a Triome that's just infinitely better. It adds 1 extra mana. This always comes in tapped, so why not add something that always comes in tapped that has 3 colors instead of 2? Cinderglade is a land mountain forest. You can tap to add a red or green. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. I'm getting rid of this one just for the word basic lands. There's a lot of lands in the deck. There's not a lot of basics in the deck. So it's one of those ones that are probably coming in more often tapped than not. So Cinderglade, out. Gallifrey Council Chamber is a legendary land. It says when it enters the battlefield, surveil 1. You could tap it to add a colorless, or you could tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast a Time Lord or Alien spell, or activate an ability of a Time Lord or Alien. Yes, it taps for mana to get our commander out, but once our commander is out, this is kind of just tapping just for colorless, and we just want more colors than colorless mana. So this is the one that's getting the axe here. And to wrap it up, I'm just cutting out 1 basic island because most of our deck Wow, it is all pretty much even with colors. Blue is going to be the lowest. So just one island is gone.
Right on, dude. Is that everything? Is that the cuts, additions, everything?
That is going to be my entire additions, cuts, everything for the $300 upgrade of Paradox Power.
Right on, man. So, including the $100 list, what did the price total come out to for this upgrade?
At the time of recording this video, the price of the deck just comes under $300 at $294.64.
Nice. Saving them some money.
Yeah, saving some money, giving some flexibility there. If you wanted to add any extra like lands or stuff like that, you can. I just didn't want to keep cutting and adding more cards to the deck. So I'm sticking with 294.
Yeah, we don't want to break all the Who stuff, so I understand. To wrap up this video, do you have any final thoughts about the commander and just about the deck and as a whole?
Yeah, so the final thoughts here. I like the 13th Doctor and Yasmin Khan. Normally, the +1 encounter things, we see it kind of like Boros or Naya or something like that, But adding blue into it makes it a bit more unique. And just the ability to untap everything at the end step that has a counter on it, just leaving up all of our giant creatures to counters that we just swung and attacked, getting to be on block duty is so powerful. So I love this deck. I cannot wait to battle it out against you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm very excited too. I can't wait to see all these Who cards on the field, and it's gonna be great. We're gonna just like make our own episodes up, dude. But what do you guys think? Leave Hunter a comment down below letting him know. Did he miss a card? Did he not add a card that you think went perfect in this deck? We love hearing what your thoughts are. Drop us a comment. In the description, you'll find a link to this deck on the Mox field so you can check it out, play test it, pick up some cards for it. Also in the description, you'll find a link to all of our social medias. That'll be Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. And also, like I said in the beginning, we have a Patreon. So down there, you can find a link to our Patreon. Give this video a like if you like the upgrade. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any upcoming content. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
Peace.